this church here was established in the 1880s. And I want to give you a little bit of geography. At the time this church was established, this may very well have been considered part of Zirconia, or it could have been considered part of Upward. Right there is that 4-lane connector that connects Interstate 26 with US 25. So right down there, you're hitting Zirconia. We're going to be in Upward in just a couple of minutes. This was all farmland. So people are confused when they talk about Judge Mitchell King, and we're going to talk about that later, but he did own that black community land in East Flat Rock. He owned where the buildings are that we're going to go look at. He owned probably where the old mill was built. So he owned that land, but he didn't own all of what we think of as East Flat Rock. And all of this was farmland from way back in the early 1800s. So we know the Schaefer family and the Fortune family and the Capps family and the Anders family and the Roper family, and then we've got Jones, Justices, and Kegels all over this community that owned land way back prior to the Civil War. So Judge Mitchell King didn't own all of this. Everybody together? Before that connector was put there was no road there at all. So I'm trying to get your geography together. There was no trail, there was no road, there was nothing there. So that was all one continuous farmland. And my granddaddy had a packing house right over there. So this was all just one continuous farmland. There were farms and apple orchards all in here. This was the very first church because at the time people were going to Upward. See, they were going to Upward Methodist, primarily, a lot of them. And as far as the Baptist church, probably to Mud Creek. So they established this church about the 1880s. The Continental Divide runs through this area. So you were on Blue Ridge Road just now in front of the school. That's East Blue Ridge Road. The road you come down earlier was West Blue Ridge Road. It's following the ridge. But then the ridge goes this way. And when we get over to the Justice Place, you're going to stand on it.
Oh, cool.
Continental Divide. So this is the Continental Divide. So the streams over there, the Green River's just right down there.
Yeah.
The way I walked to the Green River as a kid was to go through this farmland, go through those woods, and slide on my rear all the way down the river, and then crawl on hands and knees all the way up. But that is the Green River down there. So, you know, once you get across that 4-lane and go about a half mile, you're entering game land, Green River game lands. So I'm trying to give you a geographic area of where you're at. So today, that's the Macedonia community right down there. What we would call the Macedonia community. We just passed an old historic Anders cemetery, which is now in the front lawn of a house in that Highland Hills subdivision. To give you an example of what I'm talking about. Reverend Harold McKinnish and Bruce Arrowwood, who just died this week, were the ones that discovered that cemetery, cleaned the weeds out, and nothing's in there but unmarked fieldstones. We had to trace the deeds back. We think it's Anders. The Schaefer Cemetery was on the Roper farm across the street.
Kelly Roper.
Yeah, the Roper Road, family Ropers. I don't know which one had that farm originally. But sometime in the 1900s, Mr. Roper decided he didn't want to deal with that cemetery, so he plowed all the stones up and dumped them in the bottom of his farm pond. And the only thing that we found is a Confederate States plaque, but we don't know who it went to. It was a Confederate States of America marker, and it's at the Genealogical Society. A Fortune family cemetery was where the connector is. And when they built that road, the church was further that way, an old white wooden church. The cemetery was in the road, in the way of the DOT. So the oldest section of the cemetery, the DOT had to move the graves. They had to put land down in here. They had to move the church a little bit, built a new church. And the DOT helped to move the old Fortune family cemetery graves and graves that went with this cemetery further in over here. So the DOT knows to do that when they're coming through, but sometimes other developers don't. Millington M.L. Fortune, a Confederate veteran, was buried in that old cemetery that they had to move over in here. And there are also two other Confederate graves in there, William Bennison and Jacob Rollo Kirkendall Jr. So that gives you an idea of some of the local families in here. And we're going to go down this road. It's going to come to a stop sign. You're going to turn right. I need everybody to let Bob Justice lead the way. I need his car in front. So Bob, would you, when they get up there, do you want them to go right into the field?
I think that would be, with this many cars,
Okay.
I think if we just kind of pull up into the field there, then we can walk